Welcome back, my beautiful fools, to another episode of the Gaming Fool, and today we are talking about spirits. A Yu-Gi-Oh! Spirit deck, that's right. I'm sure some of you guys are thinking, wow, that's bold and crazy of you, but I assure you that this deck is actually fairly consistent, and you'll actually win a lot of casual games, some rogue games, some matchups for certain types of decks, like Gamma Gear and stuff like that. They have, or Psychic Gear, or whatever that card is. They have a hard time dealing with some of the cards in this deck, so just basically going to be showing off my little version of the spirit deck that I've had so far. Still a little bit of a work in progress, but this build right here finally has me like comfortable enough to post it, so let's get into it right now, shall we? To start off the game right here, or the video I should say, we're gonna have the Kagozuchi. So I run one Kagozuchi level 8. I run him for his effect of one, for the fact that one, he's level 8, and two, he can sacrifice or when he inflicts battle damage to an opponent, they have to discard their hand during their next draw phase before they draw. This card is extremely punishing if you manage to set it up on your opponent. It's not that hard per se, but it definitely can be done with the Kagozuchi, and it's definitely a card that I couldn't ignore, that I felt like had to be inside of a spirit deck. And then we have just one Sea Turtle Kaiju. I just have that one Kaiju because sometimes this deck has a hard time getting through like Dragoons and things like that, and it has ways of outing it, but sometimes it just needs one initial play. I used to run two Kaijus, but I found two to be a little too heavy in this deck, so I ended up putting it down to one. And then also, yeah, you'll see that the deck here, I forgot to mention this, it is 41. I'm going to explain that once I get to the card that shows why it's at 41. Anyway, next we have Yamato Dragon, part of my draw engine. This card is just insanely good if you can manage to pull it off and attack and, you know, draw 5 cards. It's one of my favorite plays to make with this deck, and it actually overwhelms my opponent and it gives me a fighting chance basically, and it's actually not too hard to pull off. And then here we have our boss monster of the deck, believe it or not, it's this rock, Amano Iwato. Amano is incredible spirit monster. His effect is no monsters on the field can activate their effects except spirits. So once per turn, or when but his only drawback is once per turn, after he's normal summoned, you have to put him back into the hand, right? So that could be a little bit annoying, but there are ways to avoid that effect. But yes, I'd run 3 Amanos because you have to run 3 Amanos. This card shuts down Dragoon. This card shuts down Drillock Bird. This card shuts down Ash Blossom. This card shuts down Psygear. This card shuts down so many cards. And you need this card to make some of your initial plays, so that way you don't have to worry about getting Ash Blossomed and stuff like that. Amano is just a fantastic card to have in the deck. Right, and then next we have Shinoburg Crane. Unfortunately, I do wish that there was a better Shinoburg spirit monster than this one, in the sense of regular monster. I have to run this monster for 2 reasons, and 2 reasons only. Well, 3 I guess you could say. He's wind, he's winged beast, and well, I guess a couple reasons. He's a spirit, he's winged beast, he's wind. He's got an effect where when he's normal summon, or if you normal summon or special summon a card while he's face up on the field that has spirit in its name, then you can draw 1 card, which I thought was pretty cool. Sometimes it's really helpful to just get that that additional draw power that you need, because you never know. Shinoburg Crane makes up a good setup for that. And then moving on to the next one, Aratama. Aratama is one of the best cards in this deck, one of our search engines. Basically, he just allows me to search the deck for any spirit monster. So I can search into my Kagozuchi, my Yamato Dragon, or my Shinobi Peacocks. We'll talk about those in a sec. But Aratama is very good at searching your deck for your spirits and getting whatever it is that you need at the current moment in time. He's a little slow, so he needs his buddy Nikatama. Nikatama is a very, very unique monster. Very, very unique for the spirit deck, and I feel like if this card didn't exist, the spirit deck would not be able to work at all. So Nikitama's effect is when he's normal summoned, spirit monsters can make an additional normal summon this turn. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then not because spirit monsters can't really special summon, so I figured, you know, having one additional normal summon can actually end up being really good. And then not only that, but this card has a secondary effect, which is not once per turn. His once per turn normal spirit monster is once per turn, but this effect is not. When he's sent to the graveyard, I can draw one card as long as there's a spirit monster on the field. So it does not matter how he's sent to the graveyard. He could be an XD, he could be just sent there. He could just be, you know, just trapped out, and he can still make that play. So he basically just is like a nice little quick summon and a little extra draw power. Also, you could use it for the rituals, and then you could, if you get 2 of them, you could use 2 of them to summon the ritual and then draw 2 cards. Whatever you need Nikitama to do. Nikitama is pretty versatile. It's a really good card. And then we run the new card that comes out in a couple days called Konohana Sakuya, and her effect is basically when she can't be normal summoned, and she can only be special summoned if you have a spirit monster on the field. Now, unfortunately, you can only use that effect once per turn, so that makes her a little bit slow. However, her secondary effect while she's in the graveyard is one of the best effects for the spirits inside of this whole deck. Her specifically is meant to be teamed up with either Amano, Yamato, or Kagozuchi. And her effect is you can banish her, target one spirit monster on the field, and that monster cannot be that monster's effect where it's returned to the hand is negated. So my Amano just gets to stay on the field unchecked, and basically Amano just has to be broken over in order for your opponent to set up plays. And 1900 attack is pretty beefy. It is doable for sure, but it's definitely beefy. And then we have 3 Ash Blossoms. I'm not going to get into that card. And then we have 3 Shinoburg Peacocks. Shinoburg Peacock is pretty awesome. He can return up to 3 monsters on the field when he's ritual summoned. And also, this is probably the best effect in my opinion. This is another one of those cards where, again, this deck would not be playable if it wasn't for this card. So basically, I can special summon any 4 or lower spirit monster from my hand, ignoring its summoning conditions. So Konohana doesn't matter, Amano doesn't matter, none of my spirits matter. So basically, I can special summon Amano, and then once Amano is on the field, here's where the good stuff actually comes into play, because if you notice Amano's effect says during the end phase, if this card was normal summoned or flip summoned, return it to the hand. Well, Peacock will actually special summon it from the hand, so that effect is automatically negated because the monster was never summoned. So it makes Amano really threatening. And then when the Baron comes back to the hand like a regular spirit, he leaves behind 2 spirit tokens that are wind with 1500 attack and defense, which is actually some pretty good cover. So I'll have Amano, I'll have maybe some 2 face down cards or face down card, and then basically just have my opponent not be able to set up monsters. And then for my second one, my second spirit, we have Shino Baroness Peacock. Basically the Baron, but the female version. Now, instead of the monsters being returned to the hand, this one affects the spells and traps. So you can actually put all the spells and traps inside from your opponent's side of the field back into the deck, and then special summon any spirit level 4 or lower monster from the deck. So again, just like Baron, since that monster's special summoned, you can bypass that effect. So you can rip Amano straight from the deck, doesn't even matter, boom, just like that. And Amano is bae. Amano is bae. You want Amano. And then on to the spells and traps. We have 3 Preparation of Rites, because you just have to have Shino Baron. Another thing I forgot to mention with Shino Baron is if you summon Amano, you can actually play Pre-Preparation of Rites. And let's say your opponent has like a Dragoon and their whole field set up. Well, Amano stops Dragoon. Pre-Preparation of Rites allows you to fetch for your ritual and the ritual monster. and then you could ritual summon the monster, put all of the monsters back into the hand because all of the effects can't be negated, or put all of the spells and traps back in, and then boom, your opponent is super overwhelmed and they can't activate monster effects. It could be really, really brutal. I just think that this card has to be at 3. It's just one of those cards. And then we have triple trade-ins. Why do we have triple trade-ins? Well, because my monsters are spirits, and sometimes you won't be able to put them. They will come back to your hand. It's a spirit deck. Regardless of how much control I have over it, there will be some times where you have to have the spirit come back. And when it does, trade-in makes that dead spirit card in your hand not dead anymore. It actually makes it super freaking helpful. So I really like trade-in for that aspect because it's like a free draw engine. And then with Aratama, you can actually, like, let's say you have Aratama, Nikitama, and Sakuya. You don't actually need any other of the spirit monsters. So you could just fetch for the Shino Barons or the Kagozuchi even, and then you can trade it in and draw 2 cards. And then of course we have Foolish Burial. Now this is the reason why my deck is at 41 and not 40. I only run Foolish Burial because basically in this deck, Foolish Burial works as an upstart goblin. And what do I mean by that? If any spirit monster is on the field, I can activate Foolish Burial and then send Nikitama to the graveyard. Nikitama's effect will activate, and then I'll be able to draw 1 card. And then I'm sure you're wondering, well, why not just take out Foolish Burial? That's not even necessary. You'll just be at 40. Well, because sometimes I actually need a spirit monster in the graveyard. Because Shinoburg Crane can banish ritual monsters that include spirits in their name from the graveyard. So that makes Shinoburg Crane from the grave super, super brutal. For this deck at least, because I'm able to resummon it multiple times. And I barely have to use any resources to use it. I could use them, I could basically ritual summon using my 2 monsters, like using 2 Nikitamas, sending them to the graveyard, drawing 2 cards and summoning the Baron. And then I could activate Shinoburg Crane again and then banish the ones from the grave, and then special summon another Baron or Baroness from my hand, whatever I need at that current moment in time, which is actually sick. And then Shinoburg Power Shot. You have to run this card. You have to run this card for Amano, period. It has a good secondary effect though, but primarily this card is saved for Amano. Amano, when he's set up on the field, he needs to have that additional 500 attack and defense to make him a 2400 beat stick, so that way it's harder for your opponent to reach over the Amano wall. Shinoburg's Power Shot also has a very cool secondary effect where if you add a spirit monster, a wind spirit from your hand to the field, or from the field to the hand, then you can add any any spirit card inside of its name. You can add it from your deck to your hand. So I'm talking about, I can get the Kagozuchi, I could get Yamato, I can get Shino Baron, I can get Baroness, I could get the Shinoburg Crane. I can legitimately grab damn near any card in my deck whenever I want at that current moment in time. Yeah, it's a little slow because it's only during the end phase, but this card, just because it helps Amano, that secondary effect just is kind of like a cherry on top, basically. But yeah, Shinoburg Shot, you have to run it at 2. Don't run it at 3. It may sound nice to have 1500 attack, but drawing 2 Shinoburg Power Shots and opening hand is weak sauce. And then we have this new card called Flunderies and the Unknown Wind. Now, this card is super good. Super weird too, but it's super good. I'm sure some of you guys have heard about the new Flunderies cards that are coming out in Bursts of Destiny. Flunderies and the Unknown Wind allows me to tribute summon a monster that requires 2 tributes by tributing 1 monster that my opponent controls. Now, what does that mean? That means I can actually summon Nikitama while this card is on the field, and then I can immediately summon Kagozuchi or Yamato Dragon instantly. So let's say my opponent has himself set up with something, they have a little bit of a back row or whatever. I could summon Amano, I could activate Shino's Bird Calling, or I'm sorry, I could summon Nikitama summon, and then once Nikitama gets summoned, I could play the Flunderies, play Shinoburg's Calling, special summon my Baroness, and then put cards back into the deck, special summon my Yamato, and then I can actually sacrifice Nikitama, and then sacrifice one of your monsters, or one of your Mystic Mine, your whatever the hell, summon Yamato, put down all of my cards face down, and then boom, hit for Yamato for piercing damage, and my opponent can't negate that effect or can't stop it, so I get to draw 5 cards or make my opponent discard their hand, whatever I need. It's super mean, it's super brutal, and I feel like it's something that can't be ignored. Also, not only do I have that bonus effect of tributing monsters, this card has a secondary effect where I could reveal up to 2 winged beast monsters in my hand, put them at the bottom of my deck, and draw a number of cards equal to the cards that I put at the bottom of my deck. This card makes my dead draws awesome. It makes it when I draw, if I don't draw trade-ins and I draw like 3 ritual monsters and a Shinoburg Crane, I can't really do shit with that. So Flunderies allows me to put those cards right back into the bottom of the deck and draw 2. And how do I know it's a safe draw? Well, because they were put at the bottom of the deck. And then you don't have to worry about your rituals being summoned or lost at the bottom, because I have so many cards in the deck that make you search and shuffle that it doesn't matter. Eventually you'll get it back, but at least for that turn when you need to draw your cards, you'll always know that you have safer cards to draw. And then finally, last but not least, this card right here. Everyone told me that this card was so bad. This card does not work. And normally you guys are right. Normally this card is bad. It's a very bad card. However, inside of this deck, this card is brutal. So if I have a mono on the field and there's nothing that you can do to stop it, and you try summoning the field to overwhelm a mono in the sense of spell and traps or monsters, you can activate Urgent Ritual Art. You could banish you could banish Shinoburg Calling from the graveyard to ritual summon a monster from your hand by banishing all the monsters from the graveyard. It's so good. It's so good when your opponent is trying to play monsters to reach over a mono without activating effects, and you summon Baron or Baroness, and then you put all of the cards back in and summon another mono. It's basically like a GG's. It's super good. It's most decks can't get out of it. If I have that setup, it's very difficult, but yes. And then on to my extra deck, Urgent Ritual Art. Yeah, clutch card, super good card. Only 2 trap cards in the deck. And then onto the extra deck, we have Gallant Granite. This card is actually really cool. This card helps you get a mono. Don't force this card. This card should be used sparingly, and also more than likely you'll probably be using this card on your first turn if possible. Like, when this deck has a hard time going first, not gonna lie to you guys. Can it make plays going first? Yes, but usually that's luck based. However, going up against second, if your opponent can't stop the summoning of a mono, you can really disrupt your opponent's plays, especially if they don't have heavy spell and trap cards. So this card has to have a Lightning Storm and a Heavy Storm, and I also even think Raigeki. I'm debating on that. If you see they're down there in my side decks, I specifically have that there for destruction because my deck has a hard time destroying things. But luckily, with the way that the meta is and the way that the cards are all nowadays, most cards can't even be destroyed anyway, but sometimes, a little destruction is nice here and there. But basically, what you want to do when you're summoning Gallant Granite is you're going to normal summon Nikitama, and then you're going to normal summon Aratama, and then you're going to add a spirit monster to your hand, and you'll special summon Sakuya, and then you'll overlay Aratama and Nikitama for Gallant Granite. Then you detach Nikitama, and then it'll allow you to search for a mono. You'll add a mono to the hand, and then Nikitama's effect will go off, and then you'll be able to draw a card as well. So basically, this card is free, and then you could either link it with Konohana to get Kona in the graveyard, or you can let Konohana come back to your hand and try to set up Konohana for another play next turn. Completely up to you. This deck, this extra deck inside of this deck, also so you guys know, is not heavily used. I have an extra deck just to have one. Just, you know, any extra play is better than no play. But for the most part, you should not be summoning these cards from the extra deck, with the exception of maybe one of these cards. So we have Gaga Cowboy. Gaga Cowboy, he's only used for one reason: inflict 800 damage to your opponent's life points. Sometimes this card, your opponent ends up living with a couple hundred life points left. Gaga basically cleans that up. Just in case like you don't have your Shinoburg power shot. And then we have Goddess of the Underworld. She is just there in case I get blocked by cards that can't be affected by a card effect. I just have her there just in case I need to like swarm the field and get rid of that monster right away. This card is just, it's a test. So far I haven't found too many great ways to use this card, but it's still a good card. In the sense of attack power, I actually find this card to be more consistent for attack power. Berserker of the Tenyi, very easy to summon this card. And also this card has 3000 attack, which sometimes this deck lacks, which is power. So Berserker of the Tenyi actually makes up for that. Then we have the Harvelger, the Desperate Doom Eagle. This card is actually pretty cool because it's just 2 wind monsters plus, and a quick effect. I could shuffle a card from my opponent's graveyard back into the deck. This could be this could be very overwhelming for a lot of decks. So I just have that there just for the whatever scenario. It's happened a couple of times, but more than likely you probably won't be bringing the Doom Eagle out either. Possible that you could bring out Nightmare Unicorn, but again, not very recommended to bring out the Link monsters like these ones, unless you're like, you'll be in that situation where you're like, yeah, I think Unicorn will be able to safely activate his effect right now. But I mean, usually if you try to like make monsters to make just the Unicorn, you are going to waste all of your cards. You cannot waste cards in the Spirit deck. You have to make sure that your cards are all balanced and checked. And then, believe it or not, I actually run all of these Charmers. I run the Wind Charmer, Light Charmer, Fire Charmer, Earth Charmer, and I can summon all of the Charmers, and I can summon them all very easily. And part of the reason why I run all of the Charmers is so I can summon Goddess of the Underworld easier by stealing one of my monster's elements. Also, I can use them for tribute summons. If I already have cards on the field, I can link them to make that monster a special summon. Now I have 2 monsters and I can offer them as a tribute to summon Yamato and Kagozuchi. That's part of the reason why I do that. It's a really good card. And then we have Generator Transverser. Generator Transverser. This card is actually super cool, very situational, extremely situational, but man, in the situations where it could be used, it's really good. When it points to a card, you and your opponent switch cards. And why would that be good? Well, that's because I get to keep a free monster, and whatever monster you take from me is going to come right back to me. It's going to come back to my hand in the end phase. So it actually doesn't matter. And sometimes it's the most coolest, obnoxious play ever, and it is situational, but again, it just works. And then we have Cross Sheep. You guys know Cross Sheep. Why Cross Sheep? Cross Sheep just allows me to get that 2 additional draw power to send 2 cards to the graveyard. If I have a spirit monster on my feet in my hand, like Nikitama, or I draw into Nikitama while having spirits on the field, Cross Sheep will allow me to draw cards as well, because I'll discard those cards to the graveyard and draw 2 cards. And then also I'll use it to get rid of the cards that I don't need. And then that'll help me pull into my Flunderies, or my Shino Power Shot, or my Urgent Rituals, or my Blossoms, or whatever it is that I need at that current moment in time. I'm going to have a video uploaded on how this deck actually performs. This deck, I've been working on it for quite some time. I believe I'm in like the 300, 400s testing area. Like 300 duels, 400 duels. And so far, this is feeling like the most consistent so far, but I do still feel like it could be a little bit better. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed my spirited deck. I named it Spirited Away. A little homage. This whole deck is supposed to be homage to you know, Japanese mythology. I know the whole cards pay the respects, but nobody actually plays spirit monsters since the early 2000s. So I wanted to see them back on the field, and I wanted to see them, you know, viable. And I saw Konohana, and I thought to myself, you know, maybe now with Konohana being here, the spirits can be playable. And so far, this is the best that I've been able to come up with. I'll let you guys know if I find out something better. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You guys have a great day. Thank you guys.